Hi everyone, Cindy Olin here with Create Your Own Luck and Love. And I am excited to introduce today my very special guest on our How to Attract, Keep, and Marry Your Man Summit, PJ Dixon. Hello.
Hello, darling. How are you?
Very, very good. How are you?
Fantastic. I am delicious and delightful.
You always are.
Thanks.
PJ is a relationship coach, and he really has a unique journey. And I would love for you to share a little bit about you and what brought you here with us today.
Sure, I would be honored to. Hi, everybody. I'm PJ, and I have a very rare form of muscular dystrophy that was expected to take my life at the age of 7. And I've turned 46 this year. So either one of two things: either I've got something good to do with my life, or God's pissed and I'm working off my karma, which is probably the case. So when I was little, and doctors said that I would only live until I was 7. My mom decided to, and I think she was probably this way anyway, let me try again, decided to raise me in a way that allowed me to chase down anything and everything that I wanted to do. And so despite my disability, I was able to overcome so many things. And so how does this lead to my relationship coaching? Well, at 7, I started motivational speaking because of the rare form of my disability. Muscular Dystrophy Association picked me up, and I spent a lot of times in front of television cameras and on radios and on stages of 500 and 600 people large and fundraising events. And so I was always out in public. And interestingly enough, I was never that little boy who thought girls had cooties. Girls always were beautiful to me. Before kindergarten through 6th grade, 7th, 8th grade, all the way till now. The problem is that K through 6, I had no problem having little girlfriends. In fact, in kindergarten, I remember having 2 at one time. It was really funny. And I can still remember their names, which is even crazier. But once 7th and 8th grade came, all of a sudden it was like I could hear the brakes go on, and there was no interest whatsoever from the girls in me. All of a sudden I realized what a terrible age, right? Because 6th grade and younger, you're still a child. In 7th grade and 8th grade, you're starting to learn, you're literally in this in-between stage where you're becoming a man or becoming a woman, but you're stuck. And so at that age, all of a sudden, when I wanted to be recognized and attracted, and attract women, all of a sudden I wasn't. And I was, weaker. I was walking with leg braces at the time, and I would walk part way down the hall and I would fall, and I would have to try and stand myself up with straight legs and lift myself back up, and I'd walk about 25 or 35 more feet and I would fall again. And finally, by the 8th grade, so I was struggling with, girls didn't like me. I couldn't walk very well anymore. All of a sudden I was acutely aware of my disability, and somebody called my mom and said, your son is falling all the time and he can't walk anymore. And so then in 8th grade, not only, was I still struggling with trying to get girls to be attracted to me, I couldn't walk anymore. My parents were going through a messy divorce. I was failing some of my classes in 8th grade, and they put me into an electric chair. And they called it an electric chair. So my brain as an 8th grader heard electric chair. Oh my God, my life is over, right? And so at that point, I realized that, I didn't actually realize I got the electric chair. Everything was okay. It gave me a lot more freedom than I thought. And when I got into high school, what I realized was I still wanted the attention of girls. And the only way that I knew to get the attention of girls was to become their best friend. And so I literally was like everybody's friend and everybody's confidant, and everybody came to me and asked me questions. And even as young as 9th and 10th grade, I was still helping girls with their relationships. It just was what was natural for me. And so that just grew. And as I continued to be a motivational speaker, as I became a man and went off to college, the same thing was going on in college where people sought me out for my advice. And even after talking on stages, some people would grab me, and conversations would often revolve or come all the way around to their relationship. And it was interesting how people would just seek me out to do that. And so at some point I just realized, okay, God, you want me to help people with their relationships. But the real deep part, if I can get really deep, when I moved out here to Tucson, just a couple more pieces. When I moved to Tucson in October of 97, one of my teachers told me, one of my spiritual teachers, I moved out here to do some spiritual training. One of my teachers said, go home and pray tonight and ask God for some direction in your life, and then just listen. So I did. I went home and I and I hope this isn't offensive to people. This is just how I speak. Okay. And I went home and I prayed and I said, God, please, give me some direction. Tell me where you want me and what you want me to do in life. And then I was quiet. And in the quietness, I became still. And the moment I became still and there was no movement in me, there was just openness and receptivity. A pillar of light came through the ceiling, hit me on top of the head, filled my body with light and love. And I heard the word love. And that was all that I knew. Like at that moment, I knew that my job was to love other people. And then what I didn't know at the time, and I didn't realize this until about 8 months later when I got hit by an SUV. I was walking across the street and, well, sort of across the street, and this SUV gunned it to jump into traffic, hit me on my left side, crushed my wheelchair under the chair, tossed me out into 3 lanes of oncoming traffic. And I had time enough to say, God, please just don't let him roll over my pelvis. The front driver's side wheel came to rest leaning against my pelvis bone. And had he moved another inch or two, he would have crushed my pelvis. Interestingly, also, is that there were EMTs having dinner in the restaurant right there, and they ran out, took care of me, literally put me in the truck, and took me across the street to the hospital. So I wasn't intended to die that day. I was intended to be taught to learn to love myself. And so by having almost everything taken from me in that one moment, in my healing process, I started to appreciate what I actually had. And when you appreciate, then you naturally begin to flow into gratitude. And when you become filled with gratitude, it fills into love. And I realized in that moment of healing that the word love was not just, PJ, love other people. It was learn to love yourself, and then love others, and then learn to teach other people how to love themselves. And that's what I really do. I help other people learn to love themselves. Yes, I'm a relationship coach. Yes, I help women get engaged in 1 year. And yes, I work with parents who are struggling with their teens. But more than anything, I focus primarily on helping people learn to love themselves and learn to love their lives.
I love that. It's funny. I was just talking to a client about that very thing, that last piece this morning about really having gratitude in your life and being grateful for what you do have, because that energy really comes back, and not for that intention and or those purposes, but the happier and the more grateful you are, the more other people tend to be grateful around you.
Yeah, you know what else? In about a week and a half, I'm doing a program for a bunch of nurses, and I'm working with nurses that are experiencing compassion fatigue, and that's where you give and you give and you give, and you're just exhausted, right? And you just don't feel like you can give any more. But the moment that you feel like someone is grateful for you, all of a sudden, the energy comes back. And if in light of not having somebody else walking from one room to another, maybe, and not having someone else say, thank you for what you're doing, I really appreciate you, you can stop for a moment, take a breath, and you can begin to appreciate the gifts that you have and the opportunities you're being given in that moment to benefit or serve or experience whatever it is that whoever you're benefiting and serving, and whatever you're experiencing in that moment. If you become present and you fill with gratitude, all of a sudden you also fill with energy and life again, and that love returns. It's beautiful.
Yeah. No, that's perfectly put. And I really love your story. It's just wow. I mean, you need to write a book if you haven't already. But one of the things that I was taking out of that is, and this is a piece that is so important for women wanting to bring love in and meet their partners, is self-love. And could you help shed some light around how our listeners and watchers today can really embrace this self-love piece, and what are some of the self-loving activities that they can do in their life?
This is beautiful, absolutely. And the reason I think this is beautiful, because you're keying in on the most important piece. Everybody talks about finding and attracting and keeping the man, right? But it's not just finding, attracting, and keeping the man. It's recognizing that you need to become the best possible you, right? So when you become the best possible you and you shed that baggage, and all of a sudden, right, you transform from the person that was hurt or abandoned or lost or sad into this amazing, beautiful person, then all of a sudden finding and attracting them becomes significantly easier. So some of the pieces, from my Learning to Love program, I like to take women through 4 steps. And the 4 steps really are becoming open and receptive, because we have so much mental chatter going on, right? Our brains are always thinking and constantly like interrupting themselves and talking, and we've got 1,000 different things going on in our brains. And when that happens, we're so full that we miss everything. We don't smell the flowers, we don't experience life, we don't take time for ourselves. We neglect the people that we don't want to neglect, and we feel neglected because somebody else isn't feeding us. And so we're so overwhelmed. So become open and receptive. And one of the best ways to do that is to begin to meditate, right? Or journal, or find some way to get out the mental chatter that's going on. Some people paint, some people jog, whatever works for you. Become open and receptive, which means to become quiet or still in the mind. So Einstein says, nothing changes until something moves, right? And that's right in the physical world. But in the spiritual world or in the emotional world, I like to say that nothing changes until you become still, deeply and profoundly still. So when you become open and receptive and you still that mental chatter, then what happens when you become open and receptive is you move into stage 2, which is you immediately start to become aware. And when you become aware, there's awareness of colors and smells and tastes and sounds and feelings and emotions. And all of a sudden, your life becomes enriched because you're really becoming extraordinary. Not extraordinary, but extraordinary. You're using all of the senses that you have that make up your sense self or your sensual self. And so when you become aware of these different senses and the things and the information that are coming in, then you move to stage 3, which is you start to appreciate them. Like I'm sitting right here, my whole back wall of my of the room that I'm in is glass, and I love that. And I see the beautiful, gorgeous blue skies of Tucson, and I can feel like the temperature in my house is good, and I just ate something to bring up my energy level, so my body feels nourished. I eat mostly raw food, so I feel nourished and alive. So I'm very aware of the sensations that I'm experiencing right now. And then, so once you become aware, right, I already said that there's not just the awareness, there's that appreciation for them. The appreciation of the beautiful blue sky, the appreciation that I'm not hungry anymore, but I feel like there's energy running through my body. The appreciation of the ability to be able to breathe on my own, because I have a serious curvature in my spine, right? And so if you look, I'm going to pull out just a little bit. This is how bad my spine is. If I don't lean back, it's all
Wow.
curved like that, right? And so there's so much pressure on my lungs. So for me, every day, I am personally appreciative and grateful for the opportunity to be able to breathe independently on my own. So after appreciation, step number 4 is gratitude. Now, wait a minute. Gratitude and appreciation are the same thing, aren't they? No, they're not. Appreciation, when you well up so much with appreciation and you're like, oh my God, I appreciate so much, all of a sudden there's a sense of gratitude, because appreciation is still bringing in, right? It's still the process of bringing in to yourself. And so gratitude and gratefulness is giving back. So immediately, once you overwhelm with appreciation, you feel like you're full. Now there's a natural inclination for the law of reciprocity to kick in, which means now you're grateful and you're giving back, right? Now, whether you're spiritual or not, you have this sense of gratefulness, and there's almost always a sense of, I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be here. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to breathe on my own. I'm so thankful for the boyfriend or girlfriend in my life right now. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to see, or the legs to walk, or the heart to appreciate beauty. So appreciation is still bringing in, and gratitude is wanting to give back. And so that's when gratitude spills over into love, because what happens is when you become so grateful and it just spills forth from you, then it becomes love and you want to give back. And it's this beautiful circle that starts up here with being open and receptive, right? And then from there, it goes down to like maybe 3 o'clock. I think I'm going the right way for you guys, right? 3 o'clock is becoming aware and receptive, or becoming aware. And then maybe 6 o'clock down here, right? So you've got open, receptive, aware. And then down here, maybe towards the bottom, like maybe 5 o'clock, you've got appreciation. Then there's gratitude. and then love comes all the way back up, right? And then once we start to love, we become even more open and receptive, and it's a cycle that doesn't quit. Now, there's a way that women can get there when they're really struggling, and that talks about self-talk. And I don't know if you ever work with your clients about self-talk.
All the time.
Yeah. And self-talk is critical, right? Self-talk is what allows us to rechange or reshape what has been programmed into us from the past and reprogram our brain to really believe the real truths about ourselves, which are that we're beautiful, we're loved, we're loving, we're kind, we're generous. We are lovable, right? There is a man or a woman out there for us, and we have the opportunity and the right and the privilege to be loved. It's amazing. And all we have to do is stay consistent to that self-talk, and it changes everything.
Yeah, it's, something that I teach is, as that self-talk comes up, that, sometimes it's, it's the ego trying to bring you down to size. That alter ego is what I might call it. And, even just embracing that and kind of, I call it hugging that out, and really, having a knowing of, self-talk or affirmations that, yes, I'm lovable. Yes, I'm worthy. And
look, you can't even say I'm lovable without giggling, right? Because it just feels so good because you probably said it so many times.
But it's, of course.
Yeah, that's the beautiful part about it.
Yeah, but it's, but just having that, is repetition. One of my clients sent me a really beautiful picture last week about, she had all of her affirmations on her mirror. Nice. And she refers to them, and she's just in the habit of, saying, I am enough, I am lovable, of course. And it just brings forth that energy of love. And what was interesting is she had an experience, even I think it was last weekend, where she literally had quite a bit of energy from 3 different men that were very interested in her. Just because she has so much of that positivity flowing and that self-love that's, that's been really harnessed, and she's been really taking care of herself.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Please go ahead.
No, I just, so it's just, it's, I think, what you're saying, it's so simple, yet I think that a lot of times we make it really complicated.
Yeah. I like to make this as a reference. I say, how many people like free food? And of course, everybody's hand goes up, right? And I'm like, well, what if I invited you to my house this weekend for a barbecue? And I said, free food. And everybody said, yeah, right. And everybody's like, we'll come. And so everybody shows up at 2:00 and they're like, let's get some food. And I say, okay, let's go to the kitchen. That's my my sign language, I guess, for let's go to the kitchen, right? So let's go to the kitchen. And I open up the refrigerator door because that's the noise all refrigerator doors make. And I ain't got no food. Cindy, how can I share something if I don't have anything? And so what you're teaching her to do is have that self-love, right? You can't see me, I'm touching my heart, right? But to have that self-love, because when you have that love and you respect yourself, right? When you have that love and you respect yourself, then one of the beautiful things is that you are so filled up that you can share it with others. And those 3 men felt that, and they wanted a part of that. And it probably also enhanced her femininity. And men are very attracted to femininity.
Yes. And that, and maybe we could capitalize a little bit on that piece, because, so many, it's the majority of women nowadays, they have their own careers, they have, their own independence, but yet they want to bring in that partner. And a lot of times they unknowingly don't make room for that partner to come in. Yeah. Could you talk a little bit more about that femininity and how that makes men attractive?
Men like Men like to be strong. And masculinity means that we're strong and we're courageous and we're confident. And like Tom Petty said, you can stand me up at the gates of hell and I won't back down. And that is so, so true, right? But the one thing that men are afraid of is the expression of their emotions and sharing that emotion. And so men don't like to be wrong, especially in front of their woman, because when we're wrong in front of our women, we feel like they're not going to find us attractive anymore. So femininity creates this amazing space that is held for men to actually be open and authentic with who they are. And femininity is this softness that embraces our masculine hardness and allows us to take a breath and just and relax into the love that you want to share with us. Because as a man, we're constantly pushing out and pushing on things that are around us. And as a woman, you're constantly having things come into you. And if you look at this in terms of our sexuality, right, the penis projects from the body and is assertive and maybe even aggressive, and is all about like doing to something, whereas the vagina is open and receptive and receiving and creates a space for that masculinity. And so there's this beautiful part spiritually where if women are open and receptive to the men and share that softness with them and create a space where men can talk, and the woman that actually listens, she doesn't judge or interrupt or tell him what to do, then all of a sudden the man starts to feel really safe with her. And what happens is he feels safer with her than he's ever felt with anybody else, because she's providing a place where there's no judgment and what he says doesn't get interrupted, and she's truly listening to him. So he feels like he has a connection. And he wants to serve that. He wants to protect that because he gets so much value from that. Now, I like to say it like this too, and I'm going to switch the roles briefly. Ladies, if you've ever in your life ever had a man walk up behind you in a good way, not in a like da-dum, 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 boo, not like that, right? Not like that, but in a way where like maybe you're washing dishes or you're sewing, you're working on something, or you're reading, or you're setting the table, or you're hanging up some clothes or hanging up your coat or whatever, and your man, or it can actually even work with your father in a completely non-sexual way. Okay, have you ever had a man who you loved and trusted walk up behind you and not scare you, but walk up behind you and embrace you from behind? And when they embrace you and hold you from behind, most women will do this. And they'll sigh and breathe into their feminine and their softness, their inherent natural softness. Because when a man holds you from behind, he's saying, babe, I've got your back. And for women, you need to do that for a man. Instead of embracing us from behind, you can embrace us from behind, but figuratively, we need you to embrace us from the front and protect our heart. Create a space where we feel safe to talk and we feel safe to be vulnerable. And we're not going to do it right away, I promise. It takes a little bit of time. But if you provide space for us to be heard and for us to not be judged, you will create a connection like you've never had before. Because men will stop talking if you interrupt us. If you tell us what to do, we'll fight back. And if you judge us, then we'll fight back. But if you create this beautiful space, then we will feel so connected to you and so grateful, and we'll want to be your servant, which is the way it should be.
Yeah, it's so funny when you were talking about that, and I wanted to say, listen, ladies, listen up to the not judging and
Yes.
not putting down, and having, and really just having an authentic type of conversation. And even, this is really important, because I see this a lot between men and women, and men will, of course, back down from a woman that he doesn't feel like he can make happy,
Yes.
or he feels like he's being judged or put down or not trusted.
Yes.
And, and it's one thing to, and this is a little bit different, but it's one thing to just really practicing that with all the men in your life, regardless of, who they are or whether you have romantic interest, because that's just going to make it easier for you when you are with that person that you have that interest in, and for him to open up to you, it will be so much easier because you're practiced. You're not interrupting him while he speaks. You're, listening to learn, not waiting to speak. And you've got that real, I always say go on a judgment-free diet. You just got a really open vessel to receive what it is they're saying, and really, being in your life and giving. So,
it's really important too that women realize that we're not just talking to women. If we had a group of guys, we'd be telling them similar things. Like, one of the things that I tell the guys that I work with is your woman wants nothing more in the world than for you to share your heart and how you're feeling. And that's the hardest thing in the world for a man to do. So if you can come home after a bad day, or you feel like you've been embarrassed or hurt, if you can come in and put your stuff down and say, babe, can I talk to you for a minute? Women would fall out because they'd be like, well, oh my God, yeah, hold on one sec. And they'd grab their kids and they'd run out to the street. They'd grab the nearest person and be like, can you watch my kid? I don't even know you. I know, but my husband wants to talk to me. Can you just watch him for a minute? Your husband wants to talk to you? Of course, I'll watch your kid. You run back in and you're like, yeah, babe, what do you want? You'll do anything, right? Because all you want is for him to actually open up and share who he really is. And so please, ladies, we're here for you. But if we were talking to a group of dudes, we'd be having a completely different conversation. Like, hey, man, like, put down that wrench or that video game and press pause when your lady says, hey, can you help me? Or says anything, set down what you're doing and jump up and go and talk to her. Now, here's the thing, okay? This is really important for ladies to understand. Men and women communicate differently. Big surprise, right? We all know that. But here's the thing, like when ladies say, hey, babe, can we talk, or I need to have a talk with you, or we need to talk, or something like that. Immediately men go, oh my God, I'm in trouble. What'd they do? Right? Right, exactly. But here's the problem. Please don't do this, because I know this happens all the time, especially if you have kids, or, have been married and have kids with that person you were married with the kids in the house at the time. You say, we need to talk, and you go in the bedroom, right? And when you go in the bedroom, what happens is you shut the door, and then you sit on the bed where it's supposed to be for sleeping and making love, and you turn to face him. And here's the real problem. When you turn to face your man, you turn him on, not sexually. You turn him on to fight. Think about this for a minute. When you see men in the bar or hanging out on the street, or even at your house parties that you have, how do men talk to each other? They all stand side by side, right? And maybe they might turn a little bit towards each other, but they're not face head on like I am with you. They're more like, if you're who I'm talking to and you're one of the guys, I might be like this and be like, talk, yeah, da 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 da, talk, right? And I'll look at you periodically to see if you're looking at me, right? But I'm not like this. Because think about it, when guys face each other like this, one of two things is going to happen. We're going to fight, or we're going to make out. We probably ain't making out, right? We're probably going to fight. And so when you sit down in the bed with the door closed and you face him like this and you say, babe, we've got to talk. One, he thinks he's in trouble. Two, you're facing him, so you're turning on his primal need to fight. Three, you've locked him in a door, so he may love you, but he's going to crawl over you to get to that door to get out. And then what's even worse is you say, well, what do you feel about? And he goes, feel. What do I feel? How do I feel? I don't know what I feel. This is what's going on in his brain, right? And he's like, I think. No, she said, feel. Like, what do I think? How do I don't know. And in the meantime, outside of him, you're like, oh, I get it. You're not going to answer my question. You're just trying to be quiet because you're trying to figure out what you're going to say to me. And I get it. Now you're in more trouble, mister. And he's like, I haven't even said anything yet. And he's already in more trouble because his brain biologically thinks slower than a woman's brain.
Yes. They do. They process
there is biological difference.
Yeah, they process information at a different speed. I work with my clients on this. And I always say this, when you're asking him a question, zip it.
Yes, me
Wait
too.
for 5 or 6 seconds, and also don't ask a question on top of a question or a multiple choice question,
Yes.
because that's going to confuse. A confused mind does nothing, right?
That's right. That's right.
And it's you just have to be a much more direct approach to a man. Men are very gifted in many, many ways, and as are women, but men are single focused. So if they're focusing on a conversation with you, he's focused on a conversation with you. And PJ, I have to say that's brilliant, because I love the fact that, you're right, men do speak side to side. And I always envision that when I'm telling my clients, when I talk to them, I'm like, look, men also, you don't hear them asking each other how they're doing very often. They just start talking like, hey man, I had this thing happen today at work. I can't, da 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 da. And the other guy, oh yeah, that's terrible, man. You know what I did about this? They problem solve, because that's really who they are. And since we're talking about communication, it's my favorite subject between men and women, by the way.
Right. It's beautiful.
It's, men are their primal urge is to solve your problem.
I know.
So if you just need to vent, if you had a hard day or you're having trouble with little Johnny or little Sarah at school, then instead of going into the bedroom with the door closed, you go, maybe you touch his shoulder, you say, hey babe, do you have a minute? I want to run something past you. Or I need to ask you about something.
Yeah.
Need to talk to you about this. That gets a totally different reaction. Go sit next to him.
Right. Next to him. I encourage going for walks also, because
Yes.
psychologically what happens is you're side by side with me, which says you're with me, you're my partner. Okay. We're moving at the same speed. Okay. You're not running ahead of me and I'm lost and left behind. And we have the same goal in mind, which is to walk out there, turn around and come back to the house. So we're moving at the same speed on the same path with the same intention. And during the quiet times while the man is thinking, then you have birds to watch and the sun to feel on your skin and cars driving by and children playing at the park, and you're allowed to get lost in your own thoughts and it's not a problem. And so this is really important what you're saying. And I would even say one more thing that women can do, because you're right, men are wired to solve the problem. If we're back in traditional times and the lion enters the village and you're my wife, right, I push you and my baby behind and I step between you and the lion, because that's what we do. We kill the problem. But women don't want that problem killed. They sometimes just want to talk and get it out and have a conversation. So for women, one of the things I suggest when you want to talk to your man, if you just need to brainstorm with him, you might just say, hey babe, I have something going on. Can I just kind of talk to you for a minute and just get it out? And then after I get it out and kind of hear myself talk about it, then maybe we can brainstorm about what I can do about it. But right now I just need right now I just need you to listen, and the man goes, listen, yes, I can do that. Right. If you go to him and say, babe, can you help me figure out what I need to do here? Yes. Solve problem. Yes, I can do that. We're very we're just cavemen still. I'm so sorry. There is an evolution, which is beautiful. And I think I attribute a lot of that to single moms that have raised boys to become good men with a sense of appreciation for the softer side and their emotions. So that's beautiful. But still, we're still at our core, we're guys. We solve problems and we kill things, and that's what we do, So prime up us and tell us what you need from us, and then we can deliver for you.
Yeah, and it's actually that simple.
It
And
is.
and men are different. They're, everybody's a little bit different. But, if you're with a healthy partnership and you're with somebody that you're on the same team and you can really work together within communication, it shouldn't be that hard, ladies. It shouldn't be a consistent struggle with him. And really learning to open up and be vulnerable yourself is going to help you to bridge that gap as well.
And remember, men don't speak in emotions. Literally, there's a biological difference between our brains. Women have more connective tissue from the left side to the right side of the brain. You have more neural pathways from one part of your brain to another part of your brain. You think quicker. If I say, how do you feel? You can come up with 20 different words. I ask a man, how do you feel? He says, mad, sad, or glad, right? In essence, I'm fine. Usually he's like, I'm okay. I'm fine. Why? What's wrong? Right? What do you need? And we don't speak in those languages in that term. So it is important for you to provide that space and understand where we're coming from. But it's also really important for you to honor yourself and honor your feminine, which means you might need to nurture yourself or get your nurturing, emotional nurturing from your girlfriends, or from your best friends, or from your mom, or
Right.
whoever, because your man may not be able to provide that component for you, at least not right now. But there are ways to work on it. It's very, just a few ways to work on developing that, where he starts to come out a little bit more. And another piece that I want to say too is what we're talking about right now is not necessarily going to work if you're in an abusive relationship. And I want you to understand that you might be trying all this stuff and you might say, no, they're wrong. I've tried that stuff and it just doesn't work, right? Well, the question might be, are you in an abusive relationship? Right? And if you are, nothing that you do is really going to make that better. The only thing that ever makes that better is if they look in the mirror and don't like what they see and they decide to take action and make changes. And counseling can help that, can allow somebody else to hold up that mirror, but you can't. And I just wanted to say that because I had this feeling that somebody out there might be thinking that that was going to solve their problems. And if you're in a relationship, it won't.
So I am so happy that you said that, because that's, I was, trying to put emphasis on the healthy side of things.
Yeah.
And, there can be all different sorts of not healthy. There could be someone that's just emotionally withholds, doesn't know how to open up. And you could be trying everything that we teach you, and it just doesn't change unless that person really wants to make those changes and open that door. And that's, a completely different conversation. But for the normal healthy guy that wants to be in a great relationship just like you, then these types of things really work, and they work well. And you don't have to be perfect, because men are really forgiving too. That's the great thing about men. Like, you could emasculate them sometimes, which is not recommended, but it can happen. You could be in a place where you've had an emotional day and you do that. They just bounce back much quicker than women do. And they respond really well when you're like, oh, honey, I'm so sorry that I, talk to you that way. I just feel like a jerk. And they're just like, oh, thank you. And, one more thing I just want to say, because of what you said about men don't understand the feeling language. Men do understand really well, and this goes back for my old training with Mars and Venus. They understand thinking.
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
Yeah.
And they can compute that. But if you say, I'm feeling this about this, what do you think? They can understand that much easier than, how do you feel about all the birds in the trees? They're like, huh?
I don't know. They're fine, I guess. I mean, my natural reaction is, I don't know. They're fine, I guess. And I like to joke and say I'm a big girl because I'm so in touch with my emotions.
Yeah.
My friends call me the heterosexual gay best friend.
I love it. Well, this has been awesome and so much fun with you. And I just love talking to you. I could talk to you about this subject for hours and hours. And I know that you have a special gift for our watchers and listeners today, and I'll let you tell them all about that. And just so you guys know, there is a URL right below our talk today where you can access PJ's gift.
Hi, beautiful people. I'm so glad that you stopped by. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope that there was something that you got out of our conversation. I really have two things for you. The very first thing is there are 4 videos on my engagedin1year.com/bonus page, engagedin1year.com/bonus, and the one is O-N-E, okay? If you go there, you put in your email address, then you'll get access to 4 videos. They're close to 20 minutes long a piece, and they are a little lengthy, but stay with them because the information is, I promise you, is really, really juicy and delicious. So there's a lot of good information. The other piece is, if you'd like to talk with me, let's get on a 45-minute discovering true love conversation call, and just put in your information, say that you're interested in having a conversation with me, and I will reach out and we'll get on a call and we'll just touch base with where you are and what's going on with your relationship or your past relationships, and how can we orchestrate and make things better for you. Also, if anybody feels like, God, I really need to work on myself, I really need to learn to love myself, I don't have my Learning to Love site up yet, but I imagine it'll be up soon. So in terms of that, why don't you just reach out for me at pjswisdom, that's pjswisdom.com/bonus, pjswisdom.com/bonus. Okay?
Oh, well, thank you, PJ, and thanks for
Thanks.
everything you're doing in the world and all the love that you're giving. I love what you're doing. So,
Thank you.
and
I do too,
everyone,
actually.
I know you do.
I'm really
And
blessed.
yes, it's just been really a pleasure and an honor to have you here with us today. So
Thank you.
anyone that wants to access PJ, there you go. You've got all the access that you need. And thanks again for being here today on the How to Attract, Keep, and Marry Your Man Summit. And thanks again, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Have a great day.